It's your open source advocate, and I'm back with another video. And today I wanted to talk about the series that I'm doing on building a business strictly with open source software. Now that may sound ideal, that may sound amazing, that may sound impossible. It just depends on the person you are and how you think of how this would work as a person starting a business. My goal is to give you the tools, give you the ideas, give you the background information, give you the software, give you the hardware, give you some places to start. That doesn't mean you have to take what I'm giving you. It doesn't mean you have to take what eBrickCorp is giving you. It doesn't mean you have to take the things that we're giving you and use those specifically. It's just to get you started down that road. But one of the things that I think is really important is to look at what would it actually cost if I did it with open source solutions and I said, you know what, I'm going to pay for these solutions on top of starting a business. Or I know there's going to be some upfront costs, or who knows. So I wanted to look at it from the perspective of what's it going to cost me for open source and what's it going to cost me for closed source. So what I've tried to do is lay out the things that we've given you so far in the series, lay out the costs just based on estimates or based on pricing I can find online for each of these things. And then the same way for a comparable system if you were to use closed source software. So some things are the same on both sides. It doesn't matter, right? The server you buy is the server you buy. The server hardware is going to cost you the same no matter what. So if you choose a really awesome $40,000 server, it doesn't matter if it's open source, closed source software running on it. It's a $40,000 server. It's your open source advocate, and I'm back, and I've set up a store with a little bit of merchandise. I love being your open source advocate, but I want you guys to be the open source advocates with me. So if you want to, get out there and get some of this stuff. And if you do, let me know what you think of it. Thank you for subscribing. What I'm doing is I'm trying to break that down into the annual cost on the open source side and the closed source side. So here on the pricing side, you'll see either the total price, and if it's something that you just buy at once, then I'm amortizing that, basically just splitting it. I'm not doing like an actual percentage amortization or anything, but I'm just saying over 5 years, what's my yearly cost if I just break that apart into 5 pieces? So I'm just assuming that this hardware is going to be there for 5 years, and then you'll upgrade, you'll replace it. It could go for longer than that, but I wanted to have a basis for us to compare with. If it's something where there's monthly pricing, I'm doing a multiplication to make that a yearly cost. If it's something where there's yearly pricing, I'm just putting it down as yearly pricing. If it's something where it's a 5-year contract, then I would split that apart to make it what's it going to cost you annually. So I'm trying to work through those things and give you a few rough numbers. These are by no means exact numbers. Some of the pricing that I picked you might disagree with and come back and say, you know what, that's not right. It's way less on the closed source side, or that's not right. It would be way more on the closed source side. Either way, I just want you to have an idea of what it's going to take and what it's going to cost. And I apologize that this is very small. I know for the people on mobile devices, this is not going to be easy to read, but to fit it on the screen, this is just kind of the size that I have to go to. So let me start at the top. We bought a server, and I'm just going with a server that I bought last year, right at the beginning of the year. I had been saving up for it, and it cost me just under $1,000, maybe like $1,050 actually once I put in shipping. And it has... And I kind of specified that it has 2 different CPUs, and each of those CPUs has 12 cores, which is great. So I get 24 cores, 2 CPUs, and I think it's got 256 gigabytes of RAM, and then it didn't have any hard drives. So I put all the hard drives in on my own. So it's a nice server, and then the hard drive cost, if we want to add that in here, we can. The hard drives that I put in, I think I put in 6 drives. It'd really be like 1,600. So let's make this a little more accurate, okay? Server with drives. I don't know if you buy a server with hard drives from like a brand new thing or not, but either way, it's going to be the same price on both sides. But let's be a little more accurate. So 1,600. That should adjust our cost right there, which it did. Let's put this for 1,600 as well. On the closed source side, just to be a little more accurate with what we're saying, because I want it to be like, what's this going to cost me to get started? So this is my server ready to go without any OS on it, nothing like that. So as we move down, we did a video about getting a domain name, that it's important if you're going to start a business that you have a professional sounding domain name. Now I made a little bit of fun. I made some fun domain names as well, but I also did the itpros.org. So for that, I've just averaged it, because you can get a domain for like $5, you can get a domain for like $50, you can get a domain for several $1,000s, depending on if it's one that's already owned and somebody's trying to sell it for you or sell it to you. So I just kind of went at $15, hoping that most of you would say, you know what, I don't have to have that $2,000 domain name today. When I'm a $4 million a year business, $2,000 might not be a bad investment. But today I could get by with something I could probably get for $15. So I put that on both sides, because no matter what, closed source, open source, your domain name is going to be your domain name. Now, when we move down, I also have some VPSs that I set up. I set up a VPS for my email server, and I set up a VPS for my VPN to have an outside connection, or a server for my VPN for WireGuard. And I again assumed that you would use the same VPS no matter what you did from the VPN perspective, going to the outside. So whether you use a closed source VPN or not, I just presume that that's going to be similar hardware cost to rent. And I set that up as basically $12 a month, which is about $144 a year. So this is kind of the DigitalOcean, third level VPS. Maybe it's a little cheaper on Linode, maybe it's a little more expensive, maybe Vultr has something, maybe Hertzner, I don't know. But this is just kind of where I landed, and I put it the same on both sides. So right now, each side is just canceling each other out, but I wanted to be fair, and I wanted to say these are things that would cost me the same no matter what I did, closed or open source. As we move down, I got into the part of, okay, now I'm putting software on my server. And now you can get Proxmox, and you can use Proxmox, and you can put as many VMs as your server will run. You can put as many LXC containers as your server will run. You can put as much Docker on there as your server will run. Really, Proxmox does not limit you to that. It is open source software. You can get it and you can use it for free. But they do have support plans and enterprise plans where you basically get the more stable update stream from them with updates, and there's a value add to that. So when you start looking at what is this going to cost me, they list it as $879 per CPU socket per year. Now this is for like their full out, massive enterprise plan. You can do like their Proxmox Personal for like $99 a year or something like that. It's fairly inexpensive, but I didn't want to be unfair. I wanted to be fair with my pricing. So when you look at what this would cost me for this two CPU system, this is $2,000 per year for the support and everything like that you would get from Proxmox. I then went over and looked at VMware, and I tried to find something that I felt would give me fairly close to equivalent, or at least enough that it would be like I could run my business comfortably and not worry about running out of space plan. And again, Proxmox doesn't limit me on how many VMs I can have. It doesn't limit me on how many different things I can do. So I just tried to set this up, and I wrote down here kind of what it gives you. Now this will give you 3 physical machines. This is not going to give you 3 physical machines, because if you have 3 physical machines, you might have more CPU cores. But I'm again saying I'm starting at this level with 1 server. So it doesn't matter if I buy it with 3 possible, I've still got 1 and you're still paying this price. So for me, this feels still fair. Now, if you disagree, let me know in the comments. I'm always happy to adjust my pricing and say, you know what, this is a closer deal than I thought. But for now, this is kind of where I went. I also looked at Windows Server and Hyper-V. Now, Microsoft's pricing is a little bit insane, to say the least. You really have to do some weird calculations. I actually found a nice calculator online that somebody provided that said, here's how you can calculate this. So what I put in was 2 CPUs, I believe it was 1 physical machine, 2 CPUs, and then 10 VMs. I said 8 VMs. So 12 cores each, 2 CPUs, 8 VMs, so max of 8. So I can only put 8 virtual machines, but I felt like for what we have today, for what we're using, 8 VMs would be enough. So I kind of went with this pricing. I used that calculator to get the price, and then that price came out to be about $6,400. So here you've got $5,500, here you've got $6,400. Now these may not be, I can't remember if these are per year or not. I went ahead and set it as annual cost. Now, if this is just like you pay it once, that's fine. But I believe these are annual subscription costs. So I've set this up as an annual subscription cost at this amount. So right away, we've leapt way ahead on the closed source side. That doesn't mean that I'm right. That doesn't mean that I got it right. So definitely let me know if you think I've got it incorrect. I'm always willing to make adjustments. Next thing I looked at was VPN. So we know we want to have a VPN, so I've shown you NetMaker. There's lots of other VPNs. There's OpenVPN. There's all kinds of open source VPNs that we can run for free. But NetMaker, I'm just going to show for now, just you setting it up initially for free. They do have a paid version that gives you some nice tools that you can use on top of it. I'll go back and add those in later. But right here, we've got NordVPN and we've got iVPN, and those cost, these are both about $7 per person per month or something like that. So I kind of set this as it's just me starting out my business, so I just went with about $85, and I didn't change that. So that's why this got this $85. I just kind of averaged what these two prices were. These were two of the VPNs that kind of popped up at the top of the search. There's lots and lots of VPNs out there. They all have some sort of monthly pricing. Basically, it's up to you to find the one you like. But again, we've got an option for NetMaker that we could use on these VPSs that we've already got running and save ourselves some money. So that's why I put it there. The next thing was the firewall. So I put OpenSense and pfSense, and I went out and found the pricing. So pfSense pricing for like their highest level support tier that I could find was $400 US annually. So here it is, $400 US. I then went and looked at Cisco, which took me a while to find their pricing. I got as close as I could for their pricing, and then this kind of gave me, it's the price of the hardware you buy to run the Cisco stuff, which in this case, we don't have to buy any hardware. We're going to run it on our Proxmox virtual machine server, and then plus 25% for support per year. So I did a calculation to kind of break that out, and you can see here what that turns into, which is about $720 per year. So over here we've got $400, over here we've got $720. Not a huge difference, and that includes buying the hardware initially. So, you know, again, we save a little bit of money by not having to buy hardware. If you want to buy hardware, we'd have to factor that in as well. Netgate does have hardware for sale. The least expensive thing I've seen on their site was about $85, and it goes up from there. So, I mean, you could potentially get away with something initially, even in the $500 range. So still a little bit less than you've got over here, which is kind of nice. And then you have to kind of amortize the $500 out over 5 years. So you're still talking, if we did, let's just say we bought a $120 thing, that'd be about $60, you know, somewhere in there. That'd be about $22 for 5 years for the hardware. So you're only going to add a little bit to this. It's not going to make a huge, massive difference if you bought something around $120. If you go up from there, of course, you have to adjust the price. But if we're breaking that down over 5 years, assuming that hardware lasts for 5 years, it doesn't add a lot to this, but it would add a little bit. So the next thing I wanted to look at was email, because I did show you mail in a box. A lot of you say mail cow, things like that. So again, for those VPSs, we've got our email set up. That's kind of where the price comes in. So for mail in a box, as far as I know, there's no support contract, so there's no cost there, but it's pretty easy to run. But if you wanted to run something like, let's just say you wanted to go get G Suite and run that, so you get a little bit of extra stuff. So I kind of combined that with this next line, which is our Nextcloud install, which I haven't, if you've seen that video already, great. If I haven't released it yet, just know that it's coming. But on the Nextcloud side, they charge about $3 per user per month. So that turns into about $36 per year if it's just me to start. And then as you add people to your account, it would go up from there by $36 for each person. After you get past a certain number of people, this price drops a little bit per person, but it's like once you get past 100 people or so. So it's pretty high before you get there. On the Google Workspace, it's about $6 per user per month, so about twice as much as the Nextcloud stuff. So you're going to see that reflected in the price over here. And then I also took a look at Proton Mail. So just for Proton Mail, with the ability to have some some email aliases and 3 different email domains and stuff like that, that was their lowest tier price that I could find, I think. So it was about $7 per user per month. So I just went with the Google Suite because it seems to match better with Mail in a Box and Nextcloud kind of combined. So that's kind of why I went that way. So I think that's a better comparison. So that's why it's the only thing over here in this right-hand column. And then I showed you Zential, and they do have support pricing, and their support pricing is about $190 for a year. So $190 got added to our cost. And then I went and looked at Azure Active Directory, and they give you basically $6 per user per month. And that's if you're doing 25 users. So if you're at or below 25 users per month, the cost is $6 per user per month. And if we assume it's just ourselves, then we end up right here at $6 for our own user, and then we get this $72. Now, as you add people, that's going to add cost, of course. So be aware of that. But the same price goes along here with Zential at 25 users is kind of the cap here, and then you would jump up to their next support plan. So be aware of that. If you're going to go with support plans, that's great. It supports the open source software, but know that there are limitations to different support plans, and those things can change in price. But I tried my best to be pretty fair between the closed source options and the open source options. I think I did it pretty well. And then I've got the total down here. So in our first year, if we were to say we're going to pay for everything, we're going to buy all the stuff we need, we're going to do this right out of the gate, we're looking at spending about $2,900, almost $3,000 US. Over in this column, we're looking at spending about $7,000 US. So a little bit of a difference. I mean, more than twice as much to go closed source, at least according to my calculations. Now, it may be a little less than that. It may be a little more than that. Things could vary for sure. But I'm just trying to show you that there is a cost basis reward, even if you're paying for the open source support software licenses, things like that, that they're trying to help support the open source nature of their projects. Hardware is going to cost you money. It's all going to cost a little bit of money, right? I'm not even talking about renting a business space yet. So if you're going to do that, that's going to cost you money, but that's going to be on both sides of the board. So there's things on both sides that cancel each other out. But when you start looking at the software benefits, even when you start saying support for the open source software is just a lot less expensive, which is really nice. You're not paying for licensing the software. You're just saying, you know what? If I have problems, I'd like to be able to call somebody and have an answer, get some solutions, get some help making things function correctly. I think that's awesome that they offer these things in a lot of cases, and it can really help you out as a person who's trying to run a business and not wanting to troubleshoot all the time. So I hope that this is useful for you guys. This is something that I'll continue to try to keep up with, and I'll just add more rows as we go along and try to show you what these costs, comparatively might be. Again, you might say, you know what, I know a closed source application that's way less than that. We should have compared on that. Let me know what those are, and let me know what the pricing is. Show me, send me links to those pricing things, because I want to look those up. I don't know about every closed source option on the planet. That's for certain. I want this to be a closed source option that you truly believe most people would use, because I think that I've tried to pick kind of the biggest names that I can find in some of these things. Now, the VPNs, maybe not so much, but again, I think everything else I've tried to find kind of some big names and some things that are comparable to what we can get on the open source side, and show that that comparison between those prices. I think as we go forward, you're going to see this gap get even bigger, where the closed source and the open source just really start to separate, and what your cost per year looks like versus what you can bring in as a business suddenly starts to make sense. That, you know what, it's worth it for me to start paying some of these support things and supporting the continued development of the software that I'm trying to run my business with. I want to say thank you to all of my subscribers and all of my patrons over at Patreon. Seriously, you guys make this so worth it for me to do these videos every week. I really, truly enjoy it, and I just can't say thank you enough. If you're enjoying these videos, subscribe. Let YouTube know that I'm doing a good job by subscribing to the channel. Plus, you'll get notified when I have new videos coming out. And finally, if you're enjoying what I'm doing, give it a like. Just click on that thumbs up, and that way YouTube knows that you like it, and they'll pass it along to other people that might enjoy my content as well. I really appreciate it. Thank you again. Let's get started. I hope this helps you. I hope you liked it. If you did, please like, subscribe, tell your friends about it so they can come along in the open source journey with us, and I'll talk to you next time.